Chapter 1. There was none left upon the island of Ellenmore, save only the 3 youngest boys of Robert O'Connor. Of the 4 eldest sons, Alastair had left Ellenmore some months before his father died, and sailed westward, though no one knew whither, or for what end, or for how long. And no word had come from him, nor was he ever seen again in the island which had come to be called the Isle of Strangers. Alan and William had been drowned in a wild gale in the Minch, and Robert had died of the white fever, that deadly, wasting disease which is the scourge of the Isles. Marcus O'Connor now lived on Ellenmore with his brothers Gloom and Seamus, all 3 unmarried. When their cousin Anne agreed to go with Manus MacCudrum and be married to him, the 3 brothers were ill-pleased, for, apart from not wishing their cousin to go so far away, they did not want to lose her because she cooked for them and did all that a woman does, including spinning and weaving, and was most sweet and fair to see. On the long winters she sang to them, while Gloom played wild airs upon his fiddle, a kind of oaten flute. She loved him, I know, but she was also afeard of him. Often upon the moor or on the hill, she turned and hastened home because she heard the lilt and fall of that fiddle. It was an eerie thing to her to be going through the twilight when she thought the 3 men were in the house smoking after their supper, and suddenly to hear beyond and coming towards her the shrill song of that oaten flute playing the dance of the dead, or the flow and the ebb, or the shadow reel. That sometimes at least Gloom knew she was there was clear to her, because as she stole rapidly through the tangled fern and gale, she would hear a mocking laugh follow her like a leaping thing. Manus was not there on the night Anne told Marcus and his brothers that she was going. He was on board his boat with his 2 mates, singing in the moonshine as they sat and mended their fishing gear. For a time, Anne watched the brothers in silence. She thought they did not look like brothers. Marcus was tall, broad-shouldered, with yellow hair and strangely blue-black eyes, stern, with a weary look on his sunburnt face. The light from the peats glinted upon the tawny curve of thick hair that trailed from his upper lip, for he had the air of the Norseman. Gloom was slighter of build, dark of hue and hair, but with hairless face, with thin, white, long-fingered hands that had ever a nervous motion as though they were tied-racked. There was always a frown on the centre of his forehead, even when he smiled with his thin lips and dusky, unbetraying eyes. He looked what he was, the brain of the O'Connor brothers. Not only could he speak English as though native to that tongue, he could and did read strange, unnecessary books. He was the only son of Robert O'Connor, to whom the old man had imparted the store of learning, For Arcana had been a schoolmaster in his youth and had intended Gloom for the priesthood. Gloom's voice was low and clear, but pale as pale green water running through ice. As for Seamus, he was more like Marcus than Gloom, though not so fair. He had the same brown hair and shadowy hazel eyes, the same pale and smooth face, with something of the same intent look, which characterized the long time missing and probably dead eldest brother, Alastair. Suddenly, and without any word or reason for it, Gloom turned and spoke to Anne. Well, and what is it? I did not speak, Gloom. True, but is about to speak you were. Well, and that is so. Marcus, and you, Gloom, and you, Seamus, I have to tell ye what you will be altogether glad for the hearing. 'Tis about me and Manos. There was no reply at first. The three brothers sat looking at her like they would a stranger on the moorland. There was a deepening of the frown on Gloom's brow. But when Anne looked at him, his eyes fell and dwelt on the shadow of his feet. Then Marcus spoke in a low voice. Is it Manus MacCodrum you will be meaning? Aye, sure. Again, silence. Gloom did not lift his eyes. Seamus stared at the peats. Marcus shifted uneasily. And what will Manus MacCodrum be wanting? Sure, Marcus, you know well what I mean. Why do you make this thing hard for me? There is but one thing he would come here wanting, and he's asked me to go with him, and I have said yes. And if you are not willing that he come again with the monster, or that we go across to the kirk, then I will not stay under this roof another night, but will go away from Ellenmore at sunrise. Once more, silence followed her speaking. It was broken in a strange way. Gloom slipped his feron into his hands, and so to his mouth. The clear, cold notes of the flute filled the flame-lit room. It was as though white polar birds were drifting before the coming of snow. The notes slid into a wild, remote air. Cold moonlight on the dark of the sea it was. It was the Dan-Nan-Ron